In the misty embrace of London's autumn fog, Noah stepped off the train at King's Cross, her heart pounding like the distant rumble of the underground. She had fled Spain's sun-drenched memories, seeking solace in the anonymous sprawl of this ancient city, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. Her father, ever the opportunist, had arranged for her to stay with distant relatives who turned out to include Nick, the brooding heir to a faded aristocratic line, with eyes like stormy Thames waters and a smirk that could unravel secrets. Noah clutched her worn leather satchel, the one holding faded photos of a life left behind, as she navigated the throng of commuters. The air was crisp, laced with the scent of rain-soaked stone and distant bakeries. She hailed a black cab, murmuring the address, a Georgian townhouse in Kensington, all ivy-cloaked elegance hiding who knew what shadows. As the cab wound through traffic, Noah's mind wandered to the last time she'd seen Nick, 2 summers ago, at a family wedding in Madrid, where their polite hellos had crackled with unspoken tension. He had been 18 then, all sharp jawline and quiet intensity, dancing with a grace that belied his restlessness. Now, at 20, she wondered if time had softened him or sharpened his edges. The cab pulled up to the wrought iron gates, and there he was, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, his dark coat billowing slightly in the breeze. "Noah," he said, voice low and accented with that infuriating British polish, "welcome to the madhouse." She stepped out, meeting his gaze, and felt the first spark, a flicker in the gray light, igniting something dormant within her chest. Little did she know, this reunion would fan flames neither could extinguish. The townhouse was a labyrinth of polished oak floors and walls lined with leather-bound tomes that whispered of forgotten empires. Noah's room overlooked a hidden garden, where roses clung defiantly to trellises despite the chill. Nick showed her around with detached efficiency, pointing out the kitchen where breakfast was a solitary affair, the library that doubled as his sanctuary, and the attic studio where he tinkered with vintage motorcycles, grease stains a badge of rebellion against his polished lineage. "Don't touch the bikes," he warned, half smiling, as if she were a child prone to mischief. Noah bristled, her independence a shield forged in the fires of her mother's abandonment and her father's neglect. That evening, as rain pattered against the leaded windows, they shared a meal of shepherd's pie and bitter ale, the silence broken only by the clink of cutlery. Conversation flowed haltingly, about her studies in literature, his pursuits in art restoration, the way London swallowed dreams whole. But beneath the banalities lurked undercurrents, the brush of his fingers against hers when passing the salt, the way his eyes lingered on the curve of her neck. Noah felt exposed, as if he could see the fractures in her armor. Later, alone in her room, she traced the patterns of the wallpaper, replaying the moment their hands touched. It was electric, a jolt that traveled from fingertips to toes, awakening a hunger she had long suppressed. Nick, too, paced the halls, cursing the pull she exerted, a gravitational force defying reason. In the quiet hours, as Big Ben tolled midnight, the flame kindled, a tentative glow in the hearth of their shared solitude, promising warmth or devastation. Days blurred into a rhythm of exploration, Noah wandering Hampstead Heath's wild paths, sketching the gnarled oaks that mirrored her tangled thoughts, while Nick vanished into the British Museum's vaults, coaxing life back into crumbling canvases. Yet their paths converged inevitably, at the corner cafe with its steaming espressos, or the Thames-side bookstalls where she unearthed dog-eared Austen novels. One afternoon, under a sky bruised with impending storm, they collided at the Tate Modern, her seeking solace in Rothko's color fields, him in the surreal twists of Dali. "Fancy meeting you here," Nick drawled, sidling up, his presence a disruption to her reverie. They wandered the galleries, voices echoing softly, debating the chaos of creation. Noah confessed her fear of blank pages, the terror of unformed stories. Nick admitted his dread of perfection, how restoring art felt like mending his own shattered family legacy. As they emerged into the Turbine Hall's vast emptiness, he took her hand impulsively, pulling her into a slow spin amid the whispering crowds. Laughter bubbled up, unbidden, and in that whirl, their bodies aligned, chest to chest, breath mingling. Time suspended, the world narrowing to the heat of his palm against her waist. When they stilled, foreheads nearly touching, the air crackled with possibility. "Noah," he murmured, thumb tracing her jaw, "your trouble." She leaned in, defiant, lips parting in challenge, and the kiss ignited, fierce, consuming, a blaze that scorched away pretenses. Passers-by blurred into irrelevance, there was only the taste of him, salt and smoke, and the roar of blood in her ears. They broke apart, gasping, the flame now a steady burn, illuminating paths they dared not tread. Whispers of scandal rippled through the family grapevine, distant aunts tutting over tea about the inappropriate familiarity between step-cousins thrice removed, but in London's indifferent sprawl, such murmurs dissolved like mist. Noah and Nick danced on the edge, stolen moments fueling the fire, a midnight picnic in Hyde Park, where fairy lights twinkled like conspirators, and they fed each other strawberries, juice staining lips crimson, a clandestine ride on his restored Triumph through Notting Hill's colorful lanes, wind whipping secrets from their throats. Yet doubt not, her visa's expiration loomed like a guillotine, his obligations to the family estate chained him to duty. One evening, in the attic's dim glow, surrounded by half-assembled engines and canvases splashed with defiant strokes, Nick pulled her close. It's madness, he confessed, fingers threading through her hair, but I can't stop. No's response was a kiss that deepened the inferno, hands exploring the map of his scars, physical and otherwise, traced from reckless youth. They tumbled onto a nest of blankets, bodies entwining in a symphony of sighs and murmurs, the room alive with the scent of oil and desire. Dawn crept in, painting their skin in golden hues, and in that fragile afterglow, vows were whispered, to fight the tide, to claim this forbidden spark as their own. But as the city stirred below, reality intruded, a letter from her father, demanding return, and Nick's mother, eyes sharp as daggers, hinting at alliances that would sever them. The flame flickered, tested by gales of convention, yet burned brighter, defiant against the encroaching dark. Winter descended like a velvet shroud, blanketing London in frost-kissed silence, and with it came holidays laced with tension. The townhouse brimmed with relatives, boisterous uncles recounting empire tales, cousins eyeing Noah with curiosity tinged with envy. Nick played the gracious host, all charm and restraint, but his glances across the crowded dining table seared her soul. Under the mistletoe in the foyer, tradition demanded a peck, but theirs lingered, a promise veiled in propriety, tongues daring a brief tango. Later, escaping to the rooftop terrace, they huddled under shared woolens, breath fogging the air as stars pierced the smog. Run away with me, Noah urged, half joking. Visions of Paris or Prague dancing in her mind. Nick's laugh was bittersweet, pulling her into his lap, where confessions spilled like mulled wine, his fear of vulnerability, her ache for belonging. Their lovemaking there, against the parapet, was urgent, a rebellion against the warmth below, cold stone biting skin, but heat blooming where they joined. Afterward, wrapped in his coat, she traced constellations on his chest, naming them after stolen joys. Yet dawn brought interrogations, a cousin's sly query about that spark in your eyes, his mother's arched brow over brandy. Nick deflected with wit, but Noah saw the strain, the war between heart and heritage. As snow flurries danced, she resolved to stoke the fire higher, to melt the barriers of blood and expectation. In quiet moments, she'd slip notes into his pockets, verses of passion penned in haste, each word a bellows to their blaze. London, with its hidden alcoves and eternal nights, became their accomplice, sheltering the inferno that threatened to consume them both. Spring unfurled in hesitant blooms, cherry blossoms carpeting pavements like confetti from a clandestine wedding, and with renewal came risks. Noah enrolled in a local university, her lectures on Victorian Gothic mirroring their own shadowed romance, love amid ruins, desire defying decay. Nick surprised her with gallery tickets, their evenings a blur of impressionist swirls and heated debates in dimly lit pubs. One night, after a Monet exhibit, they stumbled into a jazz club in Soho, saxophone wails weaving through smoke-hazed air. Emboldened by gin, Nick led her to the floor, bodies swaying in sync, hips brushing promises. In a shadowed booth, his hand slid up her thigh, igniting trails of fire beneath silk. I need you, he growled, voice husky, and they fled to his studio, where canvases toppled in their haste. There, amid turpentine fumes, they painted each other with lips and limbs, colors of ecstasy streaking skin, crimson bites, indigo bruises, gold from fevered grips. Exhaustion claimed them at dawn, tangled in sheets, but joy was fleeting, a phone call shattered it, her father's illness, a summons home. Tears carved paths down her cheeks as Nick held her, whispering futile comforts. We'll find a way, he vowed, but doubt shadowed his eyes. Days blurred in preparation, suitcases mocking their idol. On her last evening, they walked the South Bank, Thames lapping at secrets, and under the London eye's watchful gaze, he knelt, not in proposal, but plea, offering a locket etched with their initials, a talisman against separation. The kiss that followed was a conflagration, searing vows into flesh, the flame roaring against the encroaching void of distance. Separation was a slow poison, emails and calls threading fragile lifelines across the